Hello, heathens, and welcome to Spinning the Wheel podcast with me, your crone host, Megan Angus. I don't know what's going on this week. I think I hit puberty, but my voice is like a half a octave lower than it normally is. So this week it's going to be extremely sultry. Join me in the smoking den. I don't know what's going on, but I hope it's good for you. There you go. Okay. This week we are going to be tooting and booting the looks from Yule and Imbolc season. I can't help it. I want to say it every week. It takes all of my power to not say it every week. Please, RuPaul's universe, don't sue me. This week we are going to be discussing Yule/Imbolc season. Yes, you heard that right. Waning moon in Scorpio, lunar week 48. Now, this is special for a couple of different reasons, which we're going to get into very quickly. But yes, this is the crossover period between Yule season and Imbolc season. So first and foremost, before we get into the meat of it all, let me mention that this week, in theory, if you're listening to this podcast when I put it out, January 27th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I will be live streaming my Wheel of the Year 6-week guide to Imbolc Candlemas, the quickening of winter. This will be live for all humans and any other beings that would like to peacefully attend. You'll be able to watch it through my website or through my YouTube channel, Megan Angus, in all places. And if you can't make it to the live class, it will be available to watch for free on my website and on YouTube. For everyone that is subscribed to my Patreon and supporting me and this work there, thank you as usual. Patrons, clutch, like you don't even know. Everybody subscribed at the $9 and up level, which is the Venus level and higher, will have access to the Patreon bag of holding, which is a folder in the ether containing the calendar from whence we get the dates for the podcast every week, the workbook for the year, and slides and any supplementary stuff that I feel like throwing in there. It's all in there. So that is coming up January 27th. Also this week, I'm starting my Welcome to Tarot 6-week workshop, and that has sold out. So thanks everybody that is attending that. Everyone that is attending, I'm excited to see you. We're going to be flipping some cards, and it's going to be dope, sick, tight, awesome, and radical. If you have attended, you know. I will also be offering some standalone tarot classes in the first, or technically, I guess, the second week of March. So in a couple of months from now. And if you missed out on the Welcome to Tarot 6-week workshop, I will be offering that again in a few months. I do believe I'm going to offer it before summer. So there's that. If you want to be first in line, be a patron. That's who finds out about the classes first. And then you can always subscribe to my newsletter. Those folks find out second. And then I announce it here on the podcast and on social media. And that's how that works. All right. Let's get into the actual stuff that's happening. So we have been in Yule season. So let's take a moment to kind of review the work that we have been doing, that the universe and ourselves have been asking us to do since December 21st. We have been working with archetypes and symbolism and folklore and holy days that focus on a return to source, the life, death, rebirth cycle, archetypal embodiments of wisdom and enlightenment, and working with ancestors in many different ways, many different regards. And as we've talked about a lot over the last month, the global themes for Yule season are pretty similar to what the pagans are doing. There's a focus on the life, death, rebirth process, a focus on transformation, a focus on ancestors, enlightenment, wisdom, and specifically the birth, the rebirth, or the return of solar and light deities. Oftentimes, the deities that are the founders or the mothers or the fathers, as it were, of that particular religious or spiritual system. A lot of them are born or reborn or wake up from a nap at winter solstice, very similar to what our literal sun seems to be doing in our sky, where it appears to go to rest on the horizon and then is slowly coming back. So, as we move into Imbolc season, that process is changing and increasing. And I don't want to talk too much about our Imbolc symbolism, but we're going to talk about it a little bit because this definitely is sort of the crossover week as we get ready to embark on this new cycle and this new season. And that brings me around to how I was mentioning before that this week is kind of special because in one calendar we have 52 weeks, but in the lunar calendar you can have a different amount of weeks, and this year we have 48 or 49, as it were, because at the end of this week, and I will talk about this more at the end of the podcast, but at the end of this week is the end of this first lunar year of this podcast. So yay, go us. We did a whole year. Good job. um but that also marks Lunar New Year, which is, of course, a massively celebrated festival, holiday. It is a religious moment. It's a cultural moment. It's, a timekeeping moment. And it is something that is recognized and celebrated and observed by literally billions of people around our planet. So, as I said, we're going to get into that a little bit more at the end of the week. That's technically next week's podcast, but it kind of overshadows everything that's going on this week. It's sort of a big deal. A few people are kind of into it. All right, let's get into it. All right, our lunar week starts January 25th with a waning half moon in Scorpio at 5 degrees. It will be at that degree at 5:40 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, later in the day for everybody else around the planet. On this moon, we're just going to get right into it, okay? Pull up your panties or whatever chonies you prefer. On this moon, we are checking in with our grip on sanity. That's what's up. Now, sanity, right? That's a big word. And, with everything that's been happening in our world and the incredible amount of misinformation and disinformation that we have floating in the noosphere at any given time, sanity, it's it's kind of always like traveling with some asterisks or like air quotes around it. So when I say sanity, I mean relatively speaking. You probably, hopefully, have a relatively good understanding of what your baseline of sanity is, of what you know to be healthy for you. Okay. So this is a lunar cycle where we want to check in on that process a little bit. We want to check in on ourselves a little bit. We maybe are going to check in with a therapist. We might be talking to a counselor, which I would recommend if you have access in any way to folks like that. But also checking in with trusted friends and confidants that have the space for this kind of check-in. Okay? So emphasis on trusted, also emphasis on they have room for this. Don't just, hey guys, I'm kind of having a hard time in the midst of cocktails. Although sometimes that's how it happens. But if you cannot have it happen that way and you can say, hey, I need a mental health check-in, guys, soon. When would be a good time? That would be probably the better way to do it. Now, we can get into a real funky place here of like who's handling stress better or who's had a harder time. Let's not, okay? It's not suffer Olympics. That's not what's happening here. This isn't about who's handling stress better or who's dealing with their trauma more effectively or any of that crap, because we all need to put a hand out and ask for help and ask for stabilizing influence from the outside from time to time. That's all that this is about. So, part of this, to be super real, part of this is because sometimes when we become really isolated, and we absolutely become more isolated during winter, and hello, worldwide panini, we're all really isolated, way more so than most of us have ever experienced in our lifetime for an extended period of time. We kind of need to check in with other people. Partly because we might start to become afraid that we have gotten way crazier than everybody else. And we need to know that no, we all are at equal levels of crazy. Different kinds, but we're all we're all losing it, right? I was talking with a friend about sharing finances, and I was saying, how like in mutual aid groups, oftentimes the same $500 gets passed around. Like I paid my bill and I bought something nice, and then I made money, and now I'm giving that $500 to you, and you're going to pay your bill and make something nice, and when your money comes in, then you're helping so and so over there. Right? Well, we're doing the same thing, but with a cup of sanity. We're all like, have you taken a sip from the cup of sanity recently? There's a little bit to go around. We're all just going to have our turn holding the cup and like having a sip from it, that thing. So, and I'm speaking about this with a lot of levity. um I absolutely 1000% consider mental health to be an incredibly important issue at all times, but especially right now. Our little species is having a hard time. We are experiencing lots and lots of stressors that individually would be pretty shocking for our species. And we've got a whole bunch of them stacked on top of each other. So I hope that I'm not coming across as speaking disrespectfully about mental health issues. In no way do I mean disrespect. What I'm saying is none of us are immune from feeling destabilized right now. And destabilizing experiences can be okay, but they're still destabilizing. And it's good to check in with our folks around us to say, is the ground shaking under you too? What are you holding on to keep upright? Like, how are you coping with this? What's going on with you? Allowing your folks to check in with you, allowing yourself to check in with your folks. Um, you are not showing a vulnerability, or you are. Oh my God, you have a vulnerability. Oh no. But what you're also showing is that you are wise enough to say, I need help. You are um, mature enough to recognize before this problem gets bigger and I really become a burden on myself and my community and my people who are trying to help me, let me check in right now and let me say, hey, I'm feeling a little destable or unstable. I feel like I need to check in with some people. Um, Please, 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 please. And this is a really, really good moon to do that. It's a good time to do it all the time. Plus, and also, the astrology is really supportive this week of, hey, go check in. It's okay. It's okay if you feel weird. It's weird right now. You should feel weird. This is weird. Okay. When we are working with this waning moon in Scorpio for our lunar body, we are resting, relaxing, nourishing, supporting, or otherwise restoring our sex organs, reproduction organs, waste management organs, and systems. So, a good cleanse, perhaps, as I like to say every week. Um, I am not a medical doctor in any way, shape, or form. I am a doctor of the cosmos, so please check in with your trusted health advisors before listening to some raving old woman on the internet. But Scorpio rules the organs and the systems in our bodies that control sex or oversee sex and reproduction and waste management. So it's a good time to just check in with your bits. For our plant body work, we are planting, transplanting, and grafting our plant buddies to support and encourage below ground growth. So that's going to be all about roots. And speaking of roots, in our astrology for this day, Mercury, who has been retrogrades backwards into Capricorn. So Mercury heading backwards into the sign, back into the sign of Capricorn. All right. So what are we doing with a Mercury retrograde in Capricorn? Well, when Mercury is direct in Capricorn, what are we doing? We are talking, thinking about, learning, and gathering information that we are going to put towards our career goals, our long term, out there on the horizon career goals. We're talking to people, we're bringing in information, we're doing all of that stuff. With Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, we are bringing that conversation to the internal. So we are checking in with ourselves about what's going on with all of that. But we also are rechecking, we are researching, we are reinvestigating, we are reconnecting with people that maybe had information for us in the past. We are researching things that might help us, right? Mercury RX, we are adding re to the beginning of all kinds of words that we can work with. So Mercury here is going back over old information. Does this still apply? Is there something that I missed? Did I need to read the end of the chapter and finish acquiring the information from that place? Maybe there was somebody that was offering me assistance in the past and I need to reconnect with them. I need to re-email them or respond to the text that they sent me that just got lost in the holiday shuffle, that kind of thing. So that's what Mercury has to offer us by retrograding backwards into Capricorn. It's only going to hang out there for a couple of weeks, and then it's, it stations direct fairly soon. And it'll take a minute for it to pick up some speed, and then it'll be zip out of Capricorn and back into Aquarius. Okay, let's look at the holy days of January 25th. Okay, from the heavens above. Sorry. We have the heliacal rising of the fixed stars Oculus and Bos, or Bose. Oculus means eye, and we find this fixed star in the right eye of the sea goat, aka Capricorn, and Bose, or Bos, means the face of the sea goat. So the first name is Latin for eye, and its position in the figure, while Bose means ox. Sorry, I got lost in my notes there for a second. This I thought was very interesting. It's a little curious that this name turns up in Latin, for it is only otherwise known in that way as the Chinese asterism Qian Niu, which means ox. Why I think that's interesting is because we just are ending the year of the ox in Eastern astrology. And the years, in a way, in Eastern astrology, align with Jupiter's movements because you have one sign per year in Eastern astrology. And in Jupiter's movements, it takes Jupiter about a year to move through a sign. So Jupiter's movements and the big years of Eastern astrology kind of match up with each other. And we just had the ox year. Jupiter has been moving through this part of the sky in tropical astrology, we've been saying that Jupiter has been moving through Aquarius and now is in Pisces. But in sidereal, in Vedic astrology, Jupiter has been in Capricorn and is now moving into Aquarius, and so would be moving over this part of the sky. I don't know. I'm probably thinking too hard about it, but I was like, wait, that's cool. Okay, also on this day, from our friends and ancestors in Egypt, we have running from January 25th to January 30th, the festival of the goddess Amen-Amenet. Um, Now, this is, again, one of those holidays that is most likely approximated by modern pagans. I don't believe that we actually know the literal date of this festival, but it would have been around this time of year. The ancient Egyptian goddess Amentet, also known as Ament or Amentit, Imentet, was the consort of Aken, the ferryman of the dead. Her name means she of the West. This was not just a geographical statement, although some scholars consider that she may have originated from Libya, which is west of Egypt. But as the sun set in the west, it was associated with death and the netherworld. And we've talked about that previously on the podcast of this really cool worldview of the ancient Egyptians. The name Amentet refers to both the west bank of the Nile and to the world of the dead. And the dead were sometimes known as Westerners. How appropriate, honestly. Hi, we're spiking in numbers for COVID. It's pretty, yeah, even then they knew. Originally, Amenti or Amentet was considered to be the place where the sun set at the entrance to the netherworld, but the name was soon applied to cemeteries and tombs across Egypt. And of course, remember, the god Set is also very intrinsic in this imagery and this work. As a goddess of the dead, Amentet is thought to have lived in a tree at the edge of the desert overlooking the gates to the underworld. Extra credit to anybody who goes and checks out the star card in tarot. I'll just leave that there. She was often depicted in tombs and coffins protecting the dead. However, she was also a fertility goddess. Wait, what? A goddess that oversaw life and death here at the start and end of the year? What? I'm sure it's just a coincidence, as we like to say here on the podcast. She was also a fertility goddess. She met the souls of the recently deceased and offered them bread and water before ushering them into the realm of the dead. This sustenance revitalized them and prepared them for the rebirth of their souls and the trials they would face on their way to the field of reeds, which was aka paradise. Now that's wild, huh? Bread and water, a wafer, and I'm sure, yeah, it has nothing to, it's totally unrelated. Moving on, also on this day, from our friends and ancestors and debaucherous spirits of Scotland, we have the fantastic festival of Up Helia. Literally means Up Holy Day. And is a type of fire festival held annually from January to March in various communities in Shetland, Scotland, to mark the end of the Yule season. Now, I have a bunch of notes here, but ultimately, what this is a bunch of geysers who get dressed up like Vikings and terrorize the towns and villages of Scotland in the most loving and wonderful way. Drunken debauchery, ridiculousness, and it ends in setting a life-size Viking galley ship on fire. Okay, so pagans that's what's up. Now we love this. The current celebration grew out of the older Yule tradition of tar barreling, which took place at Christmas and New Year, as well as Uphelia. Squads of young men would drag barrels of burning tar through town on sledges, making mischief. I'm sure. Concern over public safety and levels of drunkenness led to a change in the celebrations to this. This was better. Leave it to Scotland. I love that's so good. This is better. Okay. Uphelia is something that is becoming more and more popular throughout Europe, but it is very much a Western Europe, UK, Scotland specific kind of thing. Um, yeah, cool stuff. All right. Also on this day, we have Saint Dwynwen's Day. This is from our Welsh friends and ancestors. Now, there's a lot to say about this saint, and we're not going to get into everything about her, but she's really cool. She's got a lot of neat hidden stuff. Um, but this day is sort of the Welsh equivalent to Valentine's Day and is always celebrated on January 25th. This saint is the Welsh patron saint of lovers, but she was also known for healing. At some point, she kind of took off and became a hermit and built her own church out in the middle of nowhere, and people came to her from far and wide for healing. And oddly enough, we have a sacred well that was dug next to her church. We will find a lot of sacred well imagery woven into our Imbolc season work. And this well was known for its sacred fortune telling fish. And people would watch the fish move and swim in the water and prophesy from it. So hello, there's Aquarius into Pisces season. Pretty straightforward, but maybe I'm just yeah, okay. Let's move on to January 26th. All right, January 26th, we still have our waning moon hanging out in Scorpio. So continue with your mental health check-in, your mental health revitalization, is everybody feeling a little off like me? Okay, cool. That thing. Keep doing that. Also on this day, for our astrology, we have our old friend Mercury retrograde, as we've just discussed, in Capricorn, as we've just discussed, trining the North Node, which has just moved into Taurus at 29 degrees. So thinking about all of that information that Mercury in retrograde is trying to bring us, right? The internal dialogue, like the internal check-in on where I'm at, as well as going back and seeing, like, am I picking something up? Am I reconnecting with someone or revitalizing a conversation I was having, whatever. Here on this day, we may have a really cool message from the universe that comes through. And remember, because Mercury's in retrograde, it's going to station direct and go forward. We're going to come back over these points. So these moments might just be opening up the conversation again. And then the actual resolution or the action that's going to ultimately be taken happens when Mercury goes direct and we come back to this point again a few weeks in the future. But pay attention on this day. When we have interaction with the North Node, that is oftentimes, and again, don't forget the North Node is a point in the moon's orbit. It's not a physical object in the sky. But when we have interactions with our chart and the North Node, or stuff in the sky with the North Node, there can be a sense of being pulled in a direction or pushed in a direction of, like, isn't this where I'm supposed to go? Or, oh, wow, is that where I'm supposed to go? So sometimes the information or the experience or the conversation or whatever it is that comes through with the North Node can be a little intimidating. You're always welcome to put yourself in timeout. Don't forget, and take a minute. Like, let me think about this for a day before I answer you. Or, wow, this is really triggering me. Even though it's good news, I'm still a little freaked out by it. Give me a second because I'm feeling a little destabilized. So let me check in. and see if this sounds wild to other people or if they also are excited about it. That thing. Okay. Um, that's all I have to talk about for the astrology. As I said, the waning moon is still in Scorpio, so we're still doing that work. So let us move directly on to the holy days of January 26th. And this year we only have two from our Roman uh, friends and ancestors. We have Sementive slash Paganalia. Now, Paganalia is a larger festival, and the Sementive is a piece of that. So, this festival was a type of Fere Conceptive. What does that mean? Well, the Ferie sort of means free, sort of means nature. But the conceptive very much means conception, to conceive. Now, these free days were held every year, not on fixed days. The days were appointed. So, this year I've mathed it out that it's on the 26th. It would be on a different day, different years. But basically, um, this festival was held in honor of the goddess Ceres, who is the goddess of agriculture, and the goddess Tellus, or Tellus Mater, who is the Mother Earth. The initial half of the event was a festival in honor of Tellus, which ran from January 4th to the January 26th. The festival honoring Ceres occurs 1 week later, starting February 22nd, or February 2nd, which we will talk about next week. The cementing Ds or cementia Ds were kept in seed time at Rome for the purpose of praying for a good crop. That's ultimately what we are doing with this. And when we look at the word, we really are saying cementive, semen, tive. So this would have literally been praying over the seeds that were ultimately going to be pushed into the earth, the semen. There it is. Paganism. It's filthy. It's so good. Also on this day, from our Chinese friends and ancestors, we have Zhao Shen Day, which is Kitchen God Day. Now, the kitchen god or the stove god has a whole bunch of Gen stories. This is the one that I thought was really cool. Stove god Zhao Shen is believed to have appeared soon after the invention of the brick stove. So, pretty far back in history, right? The kitchen god was originally believed to have resided in the stove and only later took on human form. And so that really speaks a lot to goddesses like Vesta, who are literally thought to be the fire in the hearth, as well as the metaphorical hearth fire of the home, or heart, or the fiery center of the home. During the Han Dynasty, it is believed that a poor farmer named Yin was surprised by the kitchen god who appeared on Lunar New Year as he was cooking his breakfast. Yin decided to sacrifice his only yellow sheep. In doing so, he became rich and decided that every winter he would sacrifice one yellow sheep in order to display his deep gratitude. So there's a bunch of different festivals around the Zhao Shen, or this kitchen god. But in general, this is a god that sort of represents the hearth fire of the home, the literal stove, the literal heat of the stove, but also the heat of the family, the heart, the hearth of the heart and fire of the family and the house itself, the home itself. Um, and also, this is sort of a preamble to Lunar New Year that's happening at the end of the week. So we have this Zhao Shen Day. In some places, it's very celebrated on the 24th, in some places 25th, some places 26th. That's a regional thing. But there is this sort of like resetting of the fire of the home, and this worship and rekindling and restoking of the fire of the home and the fire of the family just before we go into the new year. It's really cool stuff. I definitely recommend reading up on Zhao Shen, just because he's a cool character. It's a neat history of a holiday as well. All right, let's move on to January 27th. All right, on January 27th, our waning moon enters Sagittarius. So, we are continuing with our mental self care for this week, but what it looks like and what we might experience in that work starts to change form. So, when it's in Scorpio, we're kind of having this moment of asking ourselves, am I crazy for believing this? Um, that like where are my peers at, how do they feel about things, that sort of thing, right? And again, we're putting lots of big asterisks and hearts and parentheses and air quotes around these words like sanity and crazy and all of that stuff, because that is all very up for negotiation right now, right? Zero judgment around any of that stuff. um this is more about feeling healthy and getting to a baseline of being fairly confident that you're healthy and doing good things for yourself and your people, that thing. Okay. So continuing with that work, however, as we move into Sagittarius, we may be confronted with experiences or conversations that challenge our fundamental beliefs. And this is kind of where the conversation changes from, am I crazy because I believe these things, into, do I believe crazy things? Am I normal, but I'm believing in some really wild stuff? And is that okay? Or is that harmful? Or does that need to be mitigated in some way? Or are we doing okay? That's really where Sagittarius is asking us to take the conversation. And there's a reason for that. We're going to go further with it. So we may have some experiences that confront that confront us and challenge us to consider our fundamental beliefs. Okay. Um, so what are we talking about when we say fundamental beliefs? We're talking about those things that we believe are true about the world that are unassailable. We are not necessarily right. Okay. Those things that we believe in are not necessarily good. They might be, but not necessarily. And these types of experiences can really actually stir up some of our fanaticism. And, our fanaticism may be stirred up to the surface um, by our destabilizing experiences of the last few days or years, let's be honest, right? And now we are looking to our unquestioned beliefs, AKA our faith, to give us some kind of stability in a crazy world. And let me say that we might be witnessing this type of activity in our personal lives. We might be seeing it in the lives of our friends or family or coworkers, or we might be seeing something play out on the national stage or on the world stage. Because, 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 okay. So here's what's what with this. I'm not going to tell you that you need to argue with yourself or that you need to convince yourself of something super different from where you are now. That's not what we're doing here. What this moon is for is, instead, I want to encourage you to, if, when this kind of stuff comes up, witness your reactions and how those reactions are based in your quote unquote unassailable beliefs. This stuff is sometimes at the root of our biases and our most fundamental understanding, quote unquote, of how things, quote unquote, are. And we've talked about that a lot in the past, especially when we're moving through Capricorn, which we're about to head into at the end of this week. That we oftentimes get handed stuff by really well-meaning people, and sometimes not so well-meaning people, of just like, hey man, this is just how things are. It's kind of a bummer, but this is the system. We just got to work with it. It's the best that we've got. That thinking can apply to our beliefs too. That thinking can apply to our emotional worlds as well. Well, this is just the way it is, right? God said it. It's in the Bible. What are you going to do? Yeah, I know. I know it's tough. It's just the way it is. That thing. what is that stuff in your world? Some of that stuff may get poked at and challenged this week. Um, and we just want to know, like, ooh, where am I extra spicy? Where am I extra tender? Where am I extra sensitive about that stuff? And where am I totally okay with like hearing somebody's radically different point of view from mine? And I'm not threatened by that, or I'm not freaked out by that, or weirded out by it. Okay. I know, super fun stuff. It's always fun stuff here on the podcast. I swear to God, it gets better. Okay, for our lunar body, while we are working with a waning moon in Sagittarius, we are resting, relaxing, nourishing, supporting, or otherwise restoring our lower back, our sciatic nerve fam, and our thighs in particular. For our plant body work, we are harvesting, we are doing pest and disease maintenance and control and, checking. We are pulling weeds and we are doing any pruning that seems appropriate, all for below ground support, all for root health on our plants. Okay. We have no astrology of note for this day, so let us scooch directly into our holy days, of which we only have a few, and I'm going to scoot through them very, very quickly because they are 3 saint days scattered throughout the world. The first one is Saint Devota's Day from Monaco. This is the patron saint of Monaco. And the thing that I think is the most interesting about this character is that they have a lot of boat and fish imagery woven into their folklore. Interesting stuff. That's all I'm going to say, but that is what really stood out. Also on this day, we have Saint Nino's Day, and Saint Nino is a saint that is worshipped in the country of Georgia. I believe also perhaps a patron saint there. Um, and they are the spicy things about them, the very interesting things about them, in my opinion, is that they were a big time healer. So we're always paying attention to that. And they were connected to a symbol called the grapevine cross, which I was not familiar with initially. I had to look it up. Basically, it's a cross where the two arms that would normally go out sideways, horizontal, are dipped down. And immediately it looks like a rune. It looks like the rune Tyr with Algiz or Elhaz, which you'll have to look up because I can't show you. But um, Elhaz means elk, but specifically it's translated as divinity or higher self, the state of listening, protective teaching force, the divine plan, safety, spirituality, that kind of thing. So I just thought that was very interesting that we have this healer that was this really devout saint, and their symbol is this really odd cross that actually looks like a rune. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm stretching it. I'll always admit that. Maybe I'm stretching it. Okay. Also on this day, we have Saint Sava's Day from Serbia. Saint Sava was known as the Enlightener. He was a Serbian prince, an Orthodox monk, the first bishop of the Autocephalous Serbian Church, which basically means they kind of founded it themselves. They didn't ask permission from another church to start themselves. He was also the founder of Serbian law. He was a diplomat, and he was also regarded as the founder of Serbian medieval literature. This guy did it all. And a lot of that feels very Aquarian to me. Again, maybe I'm just stretching stuff and making everything touch everything else, but that overarching, like, big, broad, I do everything, I know everything kind of thing feels very Aquarian to me. All right, let's move on to January 28th. January 28th. Buy this butter. Okay. I'm losing it, you guys. I'm really going. I don't care either. I honestly don't care. Come with me. Come with me. Okay. January 28th, we have a balsamic moon in Sagittarius at 24 degrees at 3:22 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, later in the day / early the next day for everybody else around the planet. Okay, so here is where, in my opinion, we are going to start to see the point to our exercises over the last couple of days with our beliefs and our attitudes. On this moon, the universe may ask you to stand with a foot in two worlds and dispense your magic equally in both of those worlds. And those two worlds might look like people you totally align with and people you totally don't align with, or actions that are obviously holy and actions that are very mundane, maybe even vulgar. Like, how do we stand with that stuff? But importantly, it might be the universe that's asking you to stand with a foot in both worlds and dispense your magic in both places. And when we do this work, we can't have bias. Now, caveat, we're humans, we have bias, but we got to call it out and eradicate it as much as we can. And if we don't, here's the super fun part. The universe will totally put us in super awkward positions of defending our favorites while things get weirder and weirder and weirder. So during this moon, we need to get ourselves to see all sides as clearly as possible before we are going to be able to see the way forward. Now, I am not saying that you need to agree with all sides. I'm saying that you need to be able to relate, to understand where folks are coming from, right? So when we're talking about people, that imagery is really straightforward, but it's not always that. A lot of our lunar information comes from Raven Caldera's Moon Phase Astrology. Love the book. And specifically, when he's talking about this balsamic moon in Sagittarius, the example that he's giving is of a shaman who is giving spiritual advice to a client or a patient, right? And they're saying, you need to breathe in this smoke and you need to pray to your ancestors and you need to, wear this medicine bag day and night and you need to quit smoking and balance your checkbook and, try to get in 20 minutes of walking every day, because these are all the same thing. They are all as holy as each other. And this is something that when I read this, I was like, is my moon in balsamic? Like, I don't even have a moon in Sagittarius, but whoa, this really speaks to me, because this is a message that I feel like I've been trying to communicate to people my whole life. All of it is holy. The whole damn thing is holy. Our words, our actions, the Cheeto dust on my hands, it's all holy. It makes hating stuff really awkward, right? It makes being enemies with people or war or greed really, really awkward if, in fact, it's all holy, right? And then rolling backwards, that can make you a little crazy. And rolling forwards, sometimes people can look at you and go, oh, no, 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 no. These things are two entirely different things. That's holy. This is vulgar. And often we're acting that way with humans, right? Often we're acting that way with the planet itself. It's all holy. And when the universe asks you to spill out your cup, do you think the universe is going to be chill with you spilling a little more to these folks over here and a little less to those folks over there? You answer that question for yourself. I'm going to move on to the lunar body work that we do. It's still the same as it was before. We are resting, relaxing, nourishing, supporting, or otherwise restoring our lower back, our sciatic nerve fam, and our thighs. And for our plant body work, We are harvesting, we are weeding, we're pruning, and we are checking plants for disease and for pests. Okay. On this note of it's all holy and isn't war tacky, the only holy day that we have for January 28th is International Mobilization Day Against Nuclear War. This is a modern global awareness day. I certainly think it's a holy day. This day is celebrated to pay tribute to the victims of the first nuclear attack on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Even after so many years, the people of Nagasaki and Hiroshima are still suffering from the after effects of the atomic bombing from us, America. So it reminds us of the long term effects of nuclear weapons. And this day is a day of creating awareness against nuclear weapons. Promoting the prohibition of nuclear weapons and promoting awareness and protection for our environment and the fallout from the production of nuclear weapons. But before that, how about an ad? Okay. If you love this podcast, you can support this work through Patreon. Thank you a bajillion billion times. See, the sirens are going off even as I say it. Thank you so much to my patrons. You guys don't even know. You don't even know. Thank you so much. You can sub for as little as $1 if you just think this podcast is dope and you want to support it. I don't run ads on the podcast, partly because I don't want to, and partly because I won't get paid even if I do. So screw them, man. You can sub, as I said, for as little as $1 or $5, even if you want to just support the podcast. And this is plenty of information. But if you want even more information, extra podcasts, extra videos, extra information about the Wheel of the Year, magical practices, tarot, etc., subbing at the higher levels, you get all kinds of cool free stuff. And at the even higher levels, you get free readings every month with me to be able to integrate all of this information into your personal life based on what's going on in your natal chart and all of that other good stuff. Join and change your life forever. Or, whatever. Thanks so much for the support. If you can't support financially, I completely understand because life sucks on Earth right now. It's too expensive for everything. Tell a friend, share it on social media, give it a thumbs up. If you're feeling especially hedonistic, you can leave a rating or a review. All right, that's the end of the ad. Let's get back to the podcast. All right, January 29th, our waning moon enters the sign of Capricorn. And, being really straightforward about it, this moon is super duper pragmatic. And this is a moon about getting pretty real with yourself and your people, whatever, about what's actually possible. This is a moon that is kind of a notorious moment of like popping holes in the fantasy, popping holes in the dream, which is kind of like a harsh come down after our Sagittarius work of like, how holy can I see things? Here comes Capricorn, right? Saturn ruled, of course. That's like, no, pop. That's not holy. Stop that. Come back down to earth, pay your rent, But I want to flip that on its head, girl. Because I think that being pragmatic about a situation does not always mean being pessimistic about a situation. Those are two different things. We can be pragmatic and despondent, and we can be pragmatic and hopeful. And I think a lot of the vibes of this moon can sometimes come across from the place of we need to pop these fantasy balloons and get back to the real. We need to get grounded and come back down to earth and shrink our fantasy and let go of the dream. But I think that also being very pragmatic about your reality and saying to yourself, I need to get super real about what's real, is also about affirming to ourselves and our loved ones, our friends, our coworkers, about what is still possible, what is still happening, right? I just heard today that one of my favorite restaurants in the city is closing. I'm extremely bummed. And part of that, part of this moon feels like yeah, everything's closing. Get real, get with it, right? Everything's shutting down. Everything's changing. It's such a bummer. But part of this is also like, let me make a list of the places that are still open that I love. Let me go celebrate them and support them while they stay open. They may close soon too, or they may not. In fact, they may stay open because I went and bought a drink from them or got some scrambled eggs or whatever. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But my point in this particular moon is that this moon, I think, can feel like a real downer. Like after that high of like the holiness of Sagittarius, we come into this like very grounded, mature, pragmatic, possibly pessimistic place of this Capricorn moon. And again, I think that pragmatism can also be hopeful. It does not always have to be super doom and super gloom. We want to be practical. We want to be prepared. We can't only be idealistic about things. Totally. But we want to also be very dialed in on what is real that we can still count on. What's real that we can still enjoy. What's still here that we can still participate in or celebrate or have a piece of. That thing. Okay. For our lunar body work with this waning moon in Capricorn, we are resting, relaxing, nourishing, supporting, or otherwise restoring our skeleton and our skin in particular when it comes to Capricorn, as well as our nails and our hair to a lesser extent, I suppose. And for our plant body work, we are wanting to check in and do maintenance on our structures, our fences, our borders, our containers, especially anything that you have outside. Check it for mildew and mold, check it for pests, check for cracks. Check to make sure that things are not flooding and not freezing. Are they getting enough water? Are they getting too much water? That thing. If you don't have plants outside, I don't. I live in an apartment. But maybe you have plants growing on your windowsills. Good time to check out their structures and containers. Make sure everybody's okay. And if you've only got plants growing inside, then do it for your plants inside. Does anybody need repotting, perhaps? Maybe this is a good day to go shopping for new pots or plant stands for your plants. Structures, containers, boundaries, borders for your plants. That's what's getting the emphasis right now. Okay. We don't have a whole lot going on for this day, but we do have some spicy, some exciting, some fantastic, some delicious in the form of Venus stationing direct at 11 degrees of Capricorn. Okay. So lots of folks have been talking a lot about this Venus in retrograde. And so this is stationing direct. Now that Venus is stationing direct, it is going to go back over all those points that it was hitting while it was going backwards. Now it's going forwards, and we are going to review all that material one more time. One more time. Okay, sorry. Don't sue me. Okay, so what have we been doing with this Venus retrograde? We have been working on figuring out our needs at all levels, breaking up the crystallized patterns, breaking up our conditioning, right? We have been deconditioning, hopefully, what we have learned around things like the heart of our values, who we should be, what we should be, how we should love, who we should love. Capricorn really gets us to focus on the shoulds, the duties, the obligations, the, authority, the conditioning that we experience. And again, as I said before, a lot of times that stuff comes from people that really mean well. And sometimes it doesn't come from people that mean well, but the conditioning and the patterning is still there. And so this Venus retrograde has really asked us to kind of ask ourselves, like, what do I value? Um, you know, how do I, or do I, base my decisions in those values? What behaviors back up those values? What does success mean to me? How do I define success? How does that connect to my values, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So now that Venus is stationing direct and going forward, it's going to be going back over this territory with maybe more of an attitude of resolving some of these questions, or coming to a conclusion, or coming to an answer of a type for some of these questions. Um, yeah, cool stuff. It's been work that we've all been doing. It's been really potent work, and it's really, really important to consider, how do I value things? How do I value myself? What are my values? How do I attract things to me? Do I attract things to me? And what am I doing in that whole world? What am I doing about all of that stuff? So, I hope that this Venus retrograde has been potent for you, and I expect that the clarity around some of these things, like I said, answers to some of these questions, as well as the processing and the integrating of this information, is going to take place over the next couple of weeks. Don't think that on January 29th, Venus stations direct and bing, I've got it all figured out. It's all going to just lay nicely in your mind. No. But things may start to become more obvious going forward from there. Okay. Let us now turn to the holy days of January 29th. We have 3, and I don't have a whole lot to say about them, but they are super cute. From January 29th to the 31st, from our Hindu friends and ancestors, we have a very small festival called Kedaso. This is a hard festival to find information about, but it is a 3-day festival leading up to the Aquarius new moon, and it is focused primarily on menstruation and fertility and purification and cleansing, not from a mindset that menstruation is bad, but that the menstruation itself is the cleansing. And isn't that a cool image of a womb emptying out water, or emptying out blood and tissue and all of the stuff that wombs do, um, and thinking about the vessel that's pouring out water that we see in the sign of Aquarius? Hmm. Hmm. Also, on this day, from our Iranian friends and ancestors, we have the festival of Sadeh. And this is a preamble to the spring festival called Nowruz, which is also the Iranian New Year's, Nowruz, New Year. This festival, Sadeh, happens 50 days before Nowruz, and it sort of like kicks off the lead up period to the spring equinox. And then from our Japanese friends and ancestors, we have Wakakusa Yamayaki. The Wakakusa Yamayaki is an annual festival during which the grass on the hillside of Nara's Mount Wakakusayama is set on fire. The mountain is located at the eastern end of Nara Park, and when it is set alight, it can be seen throughout the city. The burning of the mountain itself is preceded by a fireworks display. Now, I just think that that's cool, right? Because fire, great. But also, when we are looking at the actual constellation of Aquarius itself, it is often depicted as a person holding a jug, pouring the water out of the jug. But then we find other sources that just show a jug pouring water out. But if we actually look at the constellation itself, it looks like a mountain peak with water pouring off of it. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Let's move on to January 30th, shall we? All right, that brings us to January 30th, and this is the last day of our lunar week. Yes, a lunar week with only 6 days. I went back and forth in the calendar several times because I thought I had messed something up. I was like, this can't be right. So then I looked forward, and yes, we have one again in March. And then I remembered, oh, right. January has two new moons, and March also will have two new moons. So there's something in that lunar cycle that makes one of those lunar weeks a day shorter than some of the other weeks. Most of our lunar weeks are 7 days or 8 days. But this one's 6. So there you go. Okay. So January 30th, we still have our waning moon hanging out in Capricorn. And I believe I forgot to mention this previously, but with this moon in Capricorn, we have the moon in Capricorn, Mercury in Capricorn, Venus in Capricorn, and Pluto in Capricorn. This officially means it is, that's right, 2022 Capricorn-a-con-a-thon. Be there. Okay, that's, sorry. RIP all headphone wearers. So sorry. All right. Focus, Megan. Focus. We talked about this moon in Capricorn. Again, it is a very like get real, grounding, practical, pragmatic, possibly even stodgy moon. But I'm insisting that I think that we can be hopeful in our pragmatism and practicality, as it doesn't always have to be super pessimistic. We can also be like, no, I'm making a list of all the shit that's still working. I'm making a list of all of the bars that are still open that I love to go to and hang out at. We're doing this. We're making it happen. Okay. For our astrology on this day, we do have a little bit of a road bump, a little hiccup. Um, Maybe. We have a sun in Aquarius, square Uranus and Taurus at 10 degrees. Now, this is falling on a Sunday. January 30th is a Sunday. So, generally speaking, what do we get with a Sun square Uranus moment? It's disruptive. The normal routine is disturbed. And so, if you can allow that, cool, enjoy it. Enjoy some spontaneity, enjoy an interruption, enjoy, cranking a hard left and like, oh, nope, we're going off onto this adventure now. No big deal. Cool. Let's have fun. If that works for you. And so, if we're working with this square, even though it's a square, it can still be fun, it can still be cool, it can still be exciting. If we are really relying on our structure, this might be a frustrating day. If we're not super grounded in our process, when this alteration shows up, this hiccup, this disturbance, we might just like, okay, yeah, I'm going off in this wacky new direction now, and not really think about like, oh, what am I messing up by doing this, or what am I abandoning by doing this? So we want to be present with ourselves when this shows up. Disruptive, normal routine is disturbed, and that routine might be within relationships, the way we move in the world, or the way that we express ourselves. Expect the unexpected. That's kind of the TLDR with Sun square Uranus. Expect the unexpected. If you are a person that really likes things to be predictable, this could be a tough day, and you might just feel super grumpy about everything. If you are a person that's like, woo, I love it when surprises happen, this could be a really super fun day for you, or a day where you're just like, yep, this is normal. Okay. Our only holy day for January 30th comes from our Greek friends and ancestors. This year, on January 30th, we have the Theogamia or Theogomalia of Hera. This is the anniversary of the marriage, Gamos, of Zeus and Hera, giving the month its name, Gamia or Gamalion, excuse me. Not much is known about this festival, except that it was celebrated with great feasting because the sacred marriage was commemorated this month. This month became the ideal time to marry, perhaps because of the imminent arrival of spring. very interesting connections here to some of our more festive and frolicky and frisky holidays that we have coming up very, very soon in Imbolc season. Absolutely celebrating and supporting this. That's really all I have to say about January 30th. And so that does officially bring us to the end of the lunar week. But I'm going to give you a little heads up about what is happening next week. Okay, bonus round. Because this is happening on the first day of our lunar week next week, I wanted to give you a bit of a heads up. So, what am I talking about? Well, on January 31st / February 1st, we have a black new moon in Aquarius at 12 degrees at 9:46 p.m. Pacific Standard Time later in the evening / the next day, February 1st, for everybody else around the planet. Okay. That's a lot of words. What does all of this mean? Well, first off, because the new moon is exactly new at 9:46 p.m., so late in the day, it is technically happening on January 31st for us here in the West, specifically the western part of the US, Hawaii, Alaska, these folks. Everybody else, basically around the planet, kind of from New York east, is experiencing the new moon on February 1st. Regardless, the moon moves into the sign of Aquarius at 1:42 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, January 31st. So January 31st, everywhere around the world, the moon moves into the sign of Aquarius, and then much later, 18 hours later, um it finally hits the degree of lay newness. Okay. So that's what's up with all of that. Why is it a black new moon? Well, there are a bunch of different reasons why a moon might be a black moon, specifically a new moon. For this one, it's because it is the second new moon in a calendar month. Now, how is that happening? Well, our first new moon of January was on the 2nd. January has 31 days. A lunar cycle is 29 and a half days. So there you go. Tucks right in. We just got it scooched in with a 2.5 hours to spare, but it counts. It counts. So it is a black new moon. We will talk more next week about the lunar astrology itself of a new moon in Aquarius and what we're doing with that. That information is also going to be in the Imbolc class. But what I think is much more important here is that this signals Lunar New Year, the Asian New Year. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I think, God, that feels like it was like years ago. What is time? Um, this is a New Year's observance celebrated and observed by billions, literally capital B, billions of people around the planet. Lots of Asian people and lots of not Asian people too. Um, it is a religious celebration. It's a cultural celebration. It's a timekeeping celebration. So this falls into a lot of categories. If you are a city that has an Asian community in it, it is very likely that they are going to be doing some kind of celebrating this weekend. It's really cool that it's falling on a weekend-ish, Sunday, Monday, technically, I guess. I live in Seattle. We have a beautiful, huge, thriving, incredible Asian community here with people from all over the world representing all types of Asian cultures and communities. And the Lunar New Year festivals here are incredible. They're really, really cool. They're educational, they're fun, they're exciting, they're awesome. If you have one near you, I highly recommend going and checking it out. It's good and good for you. It's good luck. And it's also good for you to broaden your perspectives and enrich yourself with these other cultures that are steeped in these timekeeping systems that we, uh, I'm going to guess it's mostly white people listening to me, that we folks here in the West, a lot of these traditions have been stripped from us, right? That's a lot of the work that we're doing as pagans, is trying to get some sense of what folks were doing and reconstruct all of this stuff. When we get an opportunity to participate in Asia's Lunar New Year celebrations, we get to participate in traditions and celebrations that in some ways are unbroken. And we're talking about hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years of practice and celebration and tradition and history. We are lucky to get to participate in it. That's all I'm going to say about that. Uh, this year, we are moving out of the year of the ox and we are moving into the year of the tiger. I don't know a whole lot about Eastern astrology. I know a little bit. I know that tiger years are dynamic, they are very engaging, and there is a lot of unexpected events that can happen. Risky things can present themselves, and sometimes it's the right thing to take the risk, and sometimes it's almost like a test of like, are you going to resist the urge? Situations can change very rapidly in tiger years. And so having an easygoing nature about change and, allowing yourself to be immutable, allowing yourself to be adaptable to things is really important. And having a backup plan is really important. And I know that's advice that you could say in a lot of different ears, a lot of different, right? It's pretty sound advice these days. But in particular in tiger years, because it is such a dynamic sign. That's about as much as I know about that. But just want to give you that heads up a week in advance that this is coming up next weekend. It is a huge global celebration. It's a big deal. It's a cool thing. Gong Hee Fat Choi, I believe, is what you are supposed to say to each other and to your loved ones. And it is basically kind of a blessing and a wishing of good luck in the coming year. Like, I hope you get paid. I hope you get the bag this year. It is a normal tradition to get little tiny red paper envelopes and stuff. And the envelopes have a particular name. I don't remember what it is. I apologize. And you stuff the envelopes with brand new money, whatever, $1, 100. I'm not going to argue. But they should be crisp, brand new bills to represent that new money that's coming in, that new wealth, the new fortune, the new luck, the new opportunity, the new promise, the new positivity, the new hope. See where I'm coming from on that Capricorn moon stuff that I'm talking about a couple days previous, right? It's important to be practical. It's important to be grounded and be real with yourself. Like, okay, we had the moment of fantasy. Now we need to come back to the ground. Yes. But we also need to be real with ourselves about what does have potential, what does have promise, what does deserve our hope and our investment and our attention. So I hope you have a wonderful week. Um, and if I'm seeing you in class, I'll see you in class, witch. Otherwise, I'll see you in class, witch. Because either you're coming to hang out with me for the tarot workshop or you're coming to hang out with me for the Imbolc class on Thursday, the 27th, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's it. That's all. Oh, actually, that's not all. Here's our wrap up for the week. For our lunar phases, we are moving from Scorpio to Aquarius. Technically, it's Capricorn, but it's Aquarius because that's where the new moon is going to be. And so we have left officially our cardinal sign energy, and we have now moved into our fixed sign energy here in the middle of winter season, sort of fixing the middle of the season, holding it down. For our astrology this week, what do we have? Let me check my notes. OMG. Pages away from where I actually need to be. I'm so sorry. Okay. We have Mercury retrograde in Aquarius conjunct the sun in Aquarius at 3 degrees. Wait, no, that's not. That's a lie. No, don't believe that. Don't write that down. Sorry. All lies. All right. January 25th, we have Mercury retrograding backwards into the sign of Capricorn. On the 26th, we have Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, trine the North Node in Taurus at 29 degrees. On the 28th, we have the Sun in Aquarius, sextile Chiron in Aries at 9 degrees. And we also have Mercury in Capricorn conjunct Pluto in Capricorn at 26 degrees. On the 29th, we have Venus stationing direct at 11 degrees of Capricorn. And on the 30th, we have the Sun in Aquarius square Uranus in Taurus at 10 degrees. Next week, we have Imbolc. We also have our Black New Moon. We have Asian Lunar New Year. We will also have the Sun conjunct Saturn. And finally, Mercury stations direct. That's it, and that's all. So much love to you, heathens. Thanks for hanging out with me every week. This has been really, really cool to do this. When I started this last year, I started an Imbolc season and I was only doing one a month. And after just a couple of months, I was like, no, I need to do this every week for myself and I guess for you guys. And it's been really cool to get the feedback from you because, again, tiny reminder, I'm just a crazy lady alone in her house yelling, which, hey, no shade. That's a great life to live. But also, it's exciting to know that you guys are finding some worth and some merit in the work that I do. I would still be yelling alone into the dark, just to be clear. But it's encouraging to know that it's working for you too. All right, that's everything. I love you guys. Blessed be.